something that continues to resurface when you hear a true principle, sometimes it'll just start to show up all over the place. And in the ancient Hermetic tradition, there is this principle of correspondence, and the idea is as above, so below, and as below, so above. And that's all that shows up in Christian scripture, even. But I really like the idea that something that you may not be able to completely comprehend, apprehend, perceive, that's going on above you or above your head in a grand cosmic scheme of things, you may be able to discern or come to some knowledge of by studying the very things that lie right under your nose or under a microscope, and vice versa. You might be able to think, I can't quite get at what's happening here under my nose, but there are very observable phenomena at the grand level that I can infer or imply might actually be taking place at the microscopic level, for example. And some of modern science, we talked about Ben Davidson earlier. He's talked about plasma cosmology, electricity in the cosmos. Some of what I think I see taking place at the microscopic level, in fact, seems to be taking place on a cosmic level. And some ancient cultures even like the idea very much that you've mentioned, which you said was strange, but that the cosmos might be some kind of living organism that's very connected and not so dispersed and unconnected as modern astronomers might like to think. And so I find that idea appealing. And I also find the idea appealing that there is intelligence, so to speak, without getting into that too much, or consciousness or mind that permeates all of space. And so I think you might be onto something, whether or not we've got the answer right here, but this idea that there is consciousness all about us, that there's mind or spirit or memory. There's another author that I've read a couple of books from now named Rupert Sheldrake. And one book in particular that I really enjoyed was called Science Set Free. And he talks about some of these ideas about consciousness and mind and its connection or relation to matter. And it's just fascinating. And there's ideas that the modern scientific community seem to reject outright based on their assumptions, which may not even be true or accurate, that if we were willing to start to investigate, might in fact yield an abundance of information, understanding to us. But then, of course, governments need to fund it if we're to make much headway. And that's a really big problem. It's a barrier to exploration. It's a barrier to exploring outside of the current accepted paradigm. And so, it leaves amateurs like me just searching elsewhere for some answers sometimes.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of I hate to say it, sort of the discouragement of the understanding of the electrical nature of our bodies and our world. So a lot of people don't recognize the power that the placebo and the nocebo effect have on your bodies. Literally, cancer patients are able to convince themselves that they're fine and healthy and they heal. And then nocebo, which is the antithesis of placebo, right? I feel terrible and I'm going to die. And then, that's all an electrical phenomenon, right? And then, so when you take it from your own individual personhood, then you have to kind of take a look at, okay, what is my world, right? What is the earth doing electrically and electromagnetically to my body? And then you take it a step further. What is the solar system doing electromagnetically? And then you take it even another step further. What is the galaxy doing to me electromagnetically? So have you heard of the Global Consciousness Project? Have you heard of this?
I've heard of that, but I've not studied it.
Oh, it's fascinating. So when people are focused on the same thing, random number generators stop being random, right? 9/11, COVID.
In fact, I think Rupert Sheldrake may have mentioned or cited some of that. I think Rupert Sheldrake mentioned that very thing in Science Set Free, and maybe that's where I heard about this global consciousness project.
Yeah.
Having some mental influence, or being able to exert some mental influence on actual physical, tangible outcomes in the real world.
Well, and it's not that hard to believe. Like a lot of people think it's pseudoscience, right? Like, oh, if a lot of people think the same way, it can't happen. But isn't that the very basis of quantum mechanical theory, right? Where if enough people observe or think the same way, that certain improbable outcomes can happen. I mean, that's the basis of quantum theory. And then we also have empirical evidence with 9/11, several other major global events where the random number generators basically stopped being random. So there is something there is a connection between our electrical device within our brain and the electrical device we know as the sun. There is a connection between all of these things. In my opinion, I'm not an IPCC, person. There is something between your electrical relationship with the world, the sun, and the overall galactic current sheet.